We are beginning the season of Advent, which is the beginning of the liturgical year. In this whole year, we meditate on the life of Christ. The word Advent means coming. So we are anticipating the coming of Christ in two senses. The readings of this season of Advent is divided into two major themes. The first one, from now till the 16th of December, focuses on the second coming of Christ, which is the theme of today's Gospel. There will be this day of the Lord's coming, so be prepared, stay awake. Lift your heads high. The second part of the season of Advent, which begins on 17th of December until Christmas, then is the anticipation of the coming of historical Christ. That means we prepare to celebrate that historical event of the birth of Jesus at Bethlehem. These two anticipations of his future coming and his past coming, they are integrated into our present experience. Throughout this period, we want to see how already here and now, every day of our life, we experience his coming into our life. In the Northern Hemisphere, Advent takes place during the darkest days of the year, when there is least sunlight. So this season invites us to look at the dark side of life, which includes hatred, racism, wars, abuses of all forms, broken relationships, sicknesses, indifference to human sufferings, etc. All these darken the world. Be alert that we may not be swallowed up by the power of darkness. But Advent is also the season of hope. Just now I mentioned when I light the first candle that it reminds us of hope. Because darkness is not the eventual victor. We believe in the victory of Christ. His victory reminds us that light has overcome darkness. The Lord has come, and the Lord is coming. In his presence, the liberation is close at hand. The Lord wants to come into our lives. So the Gospel of Luke that we have just heard asks us to keep watch, stay awake, and pray always, so that we always have that sense of God's presence in our life. How do we live the spirit of Advent? Three things. St. Paul mentions in his letter to the Thessalonians, our second reading. St. Paul says, first, may the Lord increase your love. Number two, may he confirm your heart in holiness. Number three, may you make progress in the kind of life God wants. Increase in love, increase in holiness, increase progress in the kind of life God wants. How do we increase in love? Concretely, in our day-to-day living, let us begin with our families. Some expressions are, for example, if you have misunderstanding and quarrels with your family members, make that decision to be the first one to say sorry, to initiate the reconciliation. Give more time to your spouse and children. It requires a bit of effort, a bit of scheduling, but you decide to give more time to them. Cast away the language of destruction, words that judge, condemn, insult, ridicule, or belittle. Make effort to increase in love by using encouraging words, affirming words that help to build out. Point number 2, confirm your heart in holiness. How do we work on it? Some concrete decisions that we can make. Number 1, to firm up the desire to be a saint. Sounds like a big word, but is the desire of God for us. Not to give excuse that I'm not worthy, I cannot be a saint. God wants us to be saints, to be holy. And one way to do that is to turn our thoughts to God first thing when we wake up. Or throughout the day, the people that we meet, the work that we will do to the Lord. And resolve to do everything, no matter how small it is, for the love of God. This is the spirituality of St. Teresa of Lisieux. Doing every single thing with that desire, that intention for the love of God. Third point, make progress in the kind of life God wants. Learn to develop the spirituality of discernment. Learn to put aside our tendencies to control, to want things our way, and learn to surrender ourselves to God. To sustain, let us focus always on Jesus and His gospel. Because the gospel of Jesus is the light that will help us to conquer darkness. We mentioned all these things in a very positive manner, yet at the same time we know that we are weak, we are sinful, we do make mistakes. But in spite of that, we trust and believe Christ is the victor and His light has overcome darkness. Keep watch, stay awake, be conscious of God's presence in our life, and respond to the best of our ability, always with the mind of Christ. So let this season of Advent help us to anticipate the future coming of Christ by recalling the historical coming of Christ Christmas and experiencing day by day His presence in our life.